Welcome to OOO, an out of ordinary podcast where we dig deep into case studies and the nitty gritty of Web3 marketing. You'll find here all the amazing people that are building Web3, so stick to us as we address their marketing secrets and learn how to build amazing products and brands. Hello everyone, I'm Alex, a fellow Web3 marketer and the host of an out of ordinary podcast. This is episode 63. If you don't already know, I'm launching a community for all you Web3 marketers. The reason for that is that I know resources are scarce and I think together we can push the pedal. As it's a token-gated community and I'm working on bringing you exclusive content, this will be paid, but if you sign up now, you will get it for free until the end of January. Now, without further ado, let me introduce you to my guest. Mia helps Web3 companies build an organic growth engine that drives sustainable engagement and user acquisition. Her strategies have driven massive traffic and scaled user growth for companies like Moonpay, Ledger, and Thirdweb. Hello, Mia. Thank you so much for coming on Out of Ordinary podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. How are you? How's things?
Thanks for having me, Alex. I'm awesome. How about you?
I'm great. I'm really happy that I'm no longer sick after Bangkok. And this is actually my first recording after Bangkok. So very happy to have you as my first guest here. And to kind of kick it off for somebody that doesn't know you, I'm pretty sure like a lot of people that will be listening to this episode will already know who you are. But for those that don't know, can you give us like a quick intro and tell us how you got into Web3?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Mia. I run this agency called Unhashed. We do organic marketing for a lot of companies around in the Web3 space. We've worked in the past with Moonpay, Ledger, Thirdweb, QuickNode. We are working now with a lot of other companies that a lot of people around here might be familiar with, including Aztec, including Fleek now. So yeah, growth marketing is my jam.
How did you get into Web3?
Good question. I actually stumbled into Web3. It was COVID and I was freelancing consulting and I was working with a lot of B2C products. I then moved to B2B, then I moved to B2B developer marketing. Web3 just felt like the natural next level to my career. So I was working with this agency who was marketing for this Hong Kong-based company called Data Stacks. It's a B2B developer-focused company. And the editor there had a project called Nest. It was huge in 2021, identity and access management, Mark Cuban funded and all of that. And she said, hey, we don't have anybody for marketing this company. Would you want to give it a shot? I was like, hey, I don't know anything about Web3. It's like just give it a shot. I'm not able to find anybody for the job. So I gave it a try. It worked really well. And from there, I got an inbound lead from Alchemy. And I reached out to Hubert Lamb from Moonpay. And if he would be interested in something like I did for Nest and Alchemy for Moonpay, and he said yes. So Moonpay, Alchemy were the first companies that I got started with, and after that, I partnered with somebody who was running this agency, and yeah, I'm running this agency and helping a lot of brands around now.
Well, congratulations. I'm really happy to always see and support women in the space. So I think it takes a lot of guts. I think I've already told you that. And congrats for running an agency. I think it's a lot of work. One of the first questions that I have for you, especially because the theme of today is like TGEs and stuff. What do you think is the state of the market in Web3 right now? And what do you think we should expect in 2025?
Well, that's a loaded question. So the state of market right now, I feel like incredibly bullish, not just because like crypto activities are at an all-time high, but I also feel like a lot of companies like are waking up to the fact that they can't just be building infrastructure, but they actually need to ship applications and products that can be used by consumers at large. So Interface and a lot of the other apps that are coming out in the market, Orb, like I was close with like this one product called Wildcard, even Farcaster, like all of these consumer applications that are coming out makes me feel like incredibly bullish on like where the space is going. I feel like recently after DevCon also a lot of companies have woken up to the fact that, just doing tech will not get them anywhere. And there is this renewed enthusiasm for marketing in the space. And I know you ran a marketing hackathon too around increasing awareness and bringing more people on board. So TLDR, I feel incredibly bullish on like how much awareness and how much progress we have made all in all as a space, and the kind of applications that are coming out to bring the masses on board.
Do you think 2025 is the year of marketers like getting actually the reputation or like the acknowledgement that they deserve?
I don't know the answer to that. As much as I want to say yes, the answer is I don't know. The best we can do is all try to keep moving the space forward and do our best. Not just, I feel like a lot of us come to crypto for the money, and it's good, honestly. But it's high time we all think about the long-term plan and why we are all here. And I feel like there are so many people who have stood up and have started thinking more about it. So I don't know is the answer, but I feel incredibly bullish.
Yeah, actually, a lot of people ask me like why I'm in Web3, and obviously, I know a lot of people are for the money. I think I got in for the tech, but honestly, like what I'm most excited about is like where this can go and like how I can see this evolve. So that's what excites me the most.
I know you are one of the few people who are like very patient, and you've been in the space for a while. Like I think even before you started the podcast, I think like I kind of like texted you on LinkedIn, and I've seen you around. So I know for a fact that you were here for the tech, and you've been incredibly patient and just building before like marketing like was a thing or was popular or anything like that. So kudos to like people like you.
I'm learning. Okay, I'm learning patience.
Yeah.
I know I met a lot of projects not knowing exactly where to start in Web3, always needing help, wanting to do everything and anything with one person and 10,000 million types of audiences, or the audience of everybody in crypto, as you probably have heard is like a lot of times before. Where and how should they start? What would be your advice?
So just so I know, I got your question correctly. You're asking, like when project gets started, they usually want to do 10,000 different things, but don't really know like what is the first step, like where do they start, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know the topic of the discussion is TGE, so I'll keep it focused. Like where you start is like finding people who are passionate about the product that you're building, who are passionate about the cause you're building, even if you don't have a clear understanding of what your product is or what is the core feature that is going to appeal to the community you're trying to attract. So the first step to start is like finding the group of like the first 20, 30 people who will be a part of the journey, even if you don't have a clear understanding of like what is the key value proposition of your product or tool. Finding that first power users, even if it's 20 or 30, I think that is like really step one, and everything becomes easy. Once you have that core group of like 50, 100 users, depending on whether it's a B2B or B2C product. Once you have that small community going, everything becomes easier after that. Very often what projects end up doing is they create a lot of hype around the project. So there are 10,000 people rallying around the project, but there is no core set of power users or people really interested in the tool. Most of them are there for the money and the tokens and airdrops and whatever. So I would say like once you get the core community going, it's hard. It's really, really hard. But once you get that right, everything becomes easier. Versus if you go the other way around, it's very easy at the start, but everything is incredibly difficult. And you really look back and question as to, what were you thinking, or like, how did we get here? And there's no way to reverse it, unfortunately, for a lot of projects.
I think we've kind of like seen some of them kind of, I don't think like if reverse engineering is like the right word, but like reroute somehow and like try to get on the right path. But I don't think we see that often. But I do think it's possible to a certain extent, at least.
There are definitely exceptions, but I would say like again, it's very difficult and hard. It's so much easier if you just have like product market fit, and if you know what you're doing, and the product is there, and the power users are there.
When and why do you need a token as a company? And especially in 2025 or especially in 2025, do you think it's a good time to do it? Because we know timing is everything. And right now with this bull market ish that we're in, a lot of projects or like a lot of founders will rush to get something out of the door.
Yeah, absolutely. I get this question a lot as to, what is the right time to like launch a token. The first part to your question, like why do you need a token? I think I'm like, I don't know if you're asking this more in the TGE question or more like for beginners, but like governance, utility, and funding, like those are the primary three reasons like most projects have done a token so far. There's a very good piece by Design Tokenomics, the company, which kind of lists, like when you should take which route and if it's worth it to launch a token or not. The second part of the question as to, when you should be launching a token, I think like there's a lot of like controversies around whether you should launch in a bull market or a bear market. When do you know you're ready for launching the token and things like that? I feel like um, this is an endless conversation. It can keep happening. Like when is the right time for a project to launch? The right time is when you feel ready. And when do you know you're ready? When you have your power set of users and when you know your product is working. If that is not happening, like I said, nothing you do is gonna work. When you're launching in a bear market, you're usually um, like competing or going against the market. The market is working against you. And when you're launching in a bull market, it's you're competing with 100 other projects that are launching, so you're competing either ways. It's totally like up to you as to what is the trade-off like you feel most comfortable with. But what is like a non-negotiable is that you have like your core foundations set in before you even think about a token launch.
Why do you think like a lot of founders actually push this narrative quite a lot, even if like maybe they're not like ready?
The narrative of like just launching a token.
Yeah.
um, I I feel like the money is just always too attractive. um, yeah, so I'd just leave it there and not comment more. But the money is always attractive. Let's just put it like that. And honestly, like in the hype, like it's very difficult to like even make out that that you don't actually have real users of the product, and it's just like degens, like just who are going to take the tokens and who are going to do whatever you ask them to and just dump on the market everything after TGE. Um, like it's very easy to like get lost in all of the hype and not take time to reflect, if this is really sustainable and if this is something that you can keep doing. And the realization only hits like after. And that is not something that you want your project to happen, because either ways you've worked hard for it, and it's a small community, it's a small industry. Your reputation is important. Yeah.
I do hope that with the rise of the marketers in the space, a lot more founders are going to listen to like what they actually have to say. Because, you go on Twitter or you go on LinkedIn, and you see all this like advice, like you should do this, you should do that in marketing and so on. Not just regarding TGEs, but like in general. But I feel
Right.
like nobody's really listening to that. So I do believe that like right now, at least I hope that like with the rise of like marketers, people are going to start paying a lot more attention to it. So that's my big hope.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, like when it comes to like advice, like I said, it's endless conversations. Even with TGE, high FTV, low float. When should you launch? Like how much to pay KOLs? Which KOLs to choose? It's endless. Like, and also the things that you can work and execute on. There are always 10,000 different partners you can have. There are always 10,000 different KOLs you can do. There are 10,000 PR opportunities. There's just always so much, and it's easy to get lost. I think what I've always found easier to answer is like what not to do. And then it's just about prioritizing after that. So just be very clear on what you don't want to happen and what not to do, and then just prioritize the other opportunities after that on what you feel can give you a good ROI.
Do you think small projects should think about a TGE, or do they have to wait until they become a bigger project?
um, so one is like, how would you define a small project and a big project? I would always, if you're a small project, like my biggest thing is like, don't rush. uh, the market is going to be there, the time is going to be there. uh, don't worry too much. The last thing you want is like for your token to launch and for it to just be dumped, and for you to not have an opportunity to redo anything, and the community being lost. And especially in a bull market, because there are 10,000 other communities that anybody could be interested in. I'd say take it slow is always a better idea. Small project or big project, make sure that you have your core set of power users, and what is that, your group of 100 or 1,000 fans that are always going to stay loyal, who are going to hold after all the hype is gone, after all the buzz has died down. I feel very often we end up defining big projects as projects who have created a lot of hubbub in the space, and that is not that I don't know if that's a good enough definition for a big project. A big project is also a small project who has found its set of product market fit, and also its core set of community and users who are going to support them no matter what the cycle is, no matter what the market is, and who are going to keep using the product.
I know, you mentioned 0 to 100 users, but how would you define a good community? Do you have a number in mind, or do you have some numbers that anybody should look at when decided if their community is good or big enough?
Yeah, I feel size of community, it really varies on what your product is. So that's that. I feel just generally speaking, retention is a very good metric of how good is the community, or the loyalty of the community, and the retention of the community is the primary factors you should be looking at. I work with a lot of dev focused projects and infrastructure focused projects in the space, and we do a lot of dev challenges. We do a lot of hackathons. We do a lot of grassroots level marketing as well. But we are very clear that all of this is just driving top of the funnel, and not so much necessarily devs that are going to stick, or who are going to stick or be with the project long term. That's more of the BD efforts that we do, and a lot of product marketing, which is not necessarily related to all of the hype material that we are creating. So it's very important to segregate your TGE plan versus your larger marketing, which is going to stay even after your token launch is done, and even after all of the hype has died down. The second category is more of the product marketing category, and the first is more of the hype driven or the brand driven marketing. How you define a strong community, I would say it leans more towards the product marketing side of things. How big really depends. You would always the founders would always have a hunch when they know that the community is giving them feedback on the product, when the community is using the product, and when also the community has stuck with the product for a while, and not just left the project when the incentives were gone.
What do you think most projects get wrong about token launches? Except for being too early or too late on the market.
Yeah, I think most of my answers just boil down to the points that have been driving home, and it's in this cycle. Again, we've seen Hyperliquid. We've seen I think Hyperliquid was one of the it has been doing a lot of the buzz, but even from the last cycle, ENS or OP, I think they did really well because they prioritized the community over anything else. And even last cycle, people like Jesse Pollock and I would say Todd Wales, if I'm not wrong, and all of these people were very early to call out ENS when they did their token launch, and the fundamentals still remain the same, which is focus on the community, to not be driven away or lost in the sea of hype. So what do most projects get wrong about TGE? They feel it's a lot about quote unquote mindshare, which has become a buzzword for some reason. It's a lot about mindshare. Yes, it is, but are you getting mindshare with people who are just worried about the money and the token, or is it the actual community who's going to stick even when everything is being left? So three things. One is do you have the right foundations to be able to start on the TGE? If that is not there, no point. Second is I feel how you define community is really important. Community is not people who come to your Twitter and say GM and GN. or people who
Is this still a trend?
is this the trend? I mean, like everybody knows, yes, it is. So yeah, GM, like community is not people who say GM on your Twitter post, or like when airdrop, or who just like come and like raid your Twitter account for when the airdrops are closer, or when the TGE is closer, or something like that. Like I said, there are people who have stuck right from the start. There are people who are giving you feedback on the product, and there are people who are not so much worried about the token or the airdrop, but only about using the product long term, and like what the product is giving them in return. I'd say ENS, even in the early days when it was less than, I think, 10 mil TVL or something, like they were like coming back and rewarding like the community like so much. I think 2 billion plus of ownership was distributed to contributors and users with no allocation to investors. A similar trend of which has been seen in Hyperliquid and OP also, I would say. So again, whatever cycle it is, like whatever the market it is, the fundamentals still remain the same. Reward the early users, people who have come in for the product and using the product, and not so much the token or the money that's there.
What do you think are like the top 5 KPIs one should measure the success of a token launch?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Like one, of course, I think like community, which I mentioned. Kaito as a tool is very good if marketers are looking to like just track sentiment of the community.
That's a very
And I
expensive
have a few hot
tool,
takes
in all
around this.
honesty.
Say it again?
But that's a very expensive tool, in all honesty.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know if so any project that's doing like TGE and like worried about mindshare or any of these terms, like it's not going to be cheap. Like it's expensive. Like let's be honest. And I'm not. And this is excluding all of the exchange listing pricing and all of that. Like just to have an appearance on like some of the top media publications or podcasts in the space, it's gonna cost you a lot. Let's just say that. So at the end of it, like you just want it to be worth it. That's all. And if the community is not there, the product is not really there, if nobody's going to stake, like why would you even make yourself go through all of it is my question. So anyhow, like I don't know if you know, but like the media appearances, like they would be even one media appearances. I know like some of the best in the space, like they cost like $40,000 a month, and it's a minimum retainer of 3 months that they do. So it's gonna be expensive. Kaito is like it's just $1,000 a month or something.
Well, I knew it's like 100,000 a year or something.
Oh, I'm not sure, but like the version I think that I'm using is like $1,000 a month. And there are also alternates to like the different features that Kaito offers. So there is this one tool called Octolens, if I'm not wrong, that gives you like an automated notification of all the opportunities on Twitter that you should respond to. So what it does is you input all your keywords, and on Discord or Telegram, like wherever you want the notifications to be, every time there's an opportunity or a mention of that keyword, it gives you a notification. So you can be one of the first people who respond or reply and like create that momentum going. Reply guys, generally speaking, is a great strategy to get community going for anybody, any marketer looking like for tips. So Octolens is like a good alternative to Kaito, and even like the analytics that Twitter Premium has, I feel like a lot of them are a good replacement for some of the features of Kaito. Kaito like becomes like an all-in-one tool that a lot of my projects are using to like tap the community sentiment. So community sentiment with a tool like Kaito would be like one of the things that I would track. Retention of the community, again, a very important metric. Depending on the product, the third would be like the TVL or the on-chain transactions that are happening. I put retention first before like any of the TVL or transaction metrics, because you want it to stick. You want it to not just be there for the short term until the incentives are there. So those would be like my top 3. Other than this, like Google Analytics, I feel like is super, super underrated just as a tool. And not a lot of marketers know how to tap data from that, is what I'll tell you. A lot of the hype or mindshare that you create, you want to make sure that that is translating to actual people who come and use the product, and not just there for like the buzz sake of it. So new unique visitors of the website is like one very good metric that I track for a lot of my projects. It's very easy to set up in analytics and events section there. So you want to track and tab the traffic and not just your X impressions or engagements going up. You want to make sure that that's getting translated to your Google Analytics tab and people can actually see it. So those would be, I would say, my 3 to 4 top metrics, like community sentiment, retention of the community, the traffic increase that's happening from all of the buzz that you are creating. What was the fourth one I mentioned? I think I lost track. Yeah, the TVL and the on-chain transactions, depending on like what the product is.
Do you actually know if there's any tool? I know in Romania, for example, like a long time ago, there was maybe they still use it for like Web2 and agencies and stuff for marketing campaigns that would track all your impressions, all your numbers from social. So you connect them all, and then they would give you a report every month, especially after a big campaign. Do you know if there's anything like this in Web3?
The impressions that are created, like you mean brand mentions or just impressions on Twitter?
Just everything, like engagement. I know like Twitter has its own stuff and like LinkedIn and stuff, but I'm wondering if there's any tool that can track whoever talked about, like, I'm just giving you like a proper example right now. For example, the hackathon. Like I thought like about so many times, I'm like, there were people talking about it on LinkedIn. There were people talking about it on Twitter so many times. I'm like, how can I know like what's the impact of all these tweets, all this engagement of all these people that have written about it? And not just like my own post, but like what others have said about it. And what is the sentiment? I know there was a tool, I'm missing right now. I had him on the podcast as well, like a while back, maybe like a year ago, but they died off. It was a guy that was living in Czech Republic, and I know like that was probably about it as well. But I know there was a tool that died, and it was about like market sentiment and like audience sentiment and so on. But I'm wondering if you know any other tool that maybe does that, because that might be interesting to explore, not just for me but for others as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's a good question. I don't think I have tapped any tool that, tracks sentiment across different platforms. It's primarily been Twitter for the larger audience. I don't think I've come across a tool which taps like across LinkedIn and Telegram and Discord and like all these social media places. That's a good question. Probably like I can put it in your comments or something after I've done my research and found out about it or something.
If you do, please hit me up. I would love to explore more and to like share my my learnings with anybody listening. Another question that I have for you is like, how do you mobilize your community to act as evangelists or like brand ambassadors for your token launch or for your project without relying solely on paid ads or influencers?
That's a very good question. So whenever you're thinking about marketing around TGE, one thing is like leverage. You want like as many decks stacked in your favor as possible. So when you think about like just doing like a lot of media, a lot of like content around TGE marketing. So when it comes to content, maybe like you're doing a lot of mascots, or you're doing like a lot of memes, or you're creating a lot of content that is generally relatable to the larger crypto audience or to the retail market, generally speaking. And on one side, there is like also like media appearances. So maybe you're doing a lot of YouTubes, maybe you're doing a lot of podcasting, maybe you're doing a lot of PR. So both of these efforts, I would say like the first one is like more of like one to many. So it's reaching a larger audience. And so is the second one. But both of them have like limitations. It's like one to many. It's not many to many. Many to many, like if you draw like a quadrant, I can probably like, I was like actually making this for one of my companies. So you want many to many, which is like, you're using more and more of leverage. So many to many is like when a lot of people like reach again a lot of their communities to spread message of the product. And how this happens is two different ways. Like one is the community that you have, which you rightly mentioned right now. How do you get the community to like talk more about the brand and reach their respective communities? So if you can like leverage like micro KOLs and people who have their own audiences to like talk about the product and the brand generally speaking, that is really very helpful. The second, which a lot of companies have started doing right now, is like just using team members and creating like internal KOLs. So the founder themselves, whether through their own branding or the team through their own branding, comes out and taps into their respective communities. So the marketing person in the team can like mobilize like all of the other marketers in the space and tell them all the cool things that they are doing with marketing the brand. The product person can educate like their product community of like all the cool things they are doing about like product with the brand and things like that. When it comes to community and like manage many in that case, like there are a few key things to note here. One is there are a lot of tools that not a lot of people know about that can help, that can give tools to the community to like create the lore and the memes and everything that your brand has created. One is like poster.fun, so it allows you like create memes, and I don't know if like shout out to Cyber Shakti if she's listening to the pod. Like it's really interesting. So what you do is like she'll like imprint templates of your brand or your mascot inside of the tool, and let your users communities like create content out of it. A lot of like companies also do it for the community. So like laser eyes for the Bitcoin community. So what the brand can do is they'd say, hey, like anybody, who wants like the mascot who wants to show solidarity to the community, like type a GM and we will send you like an updated version of, or a mini version of your own profile picture, or drop your picture here and we'll give you like a new community solidarity or aligned to the community picture. I think Nillian did something on these lines as well. So a lot of people like would comment, and then the brand like mobilizes all of these people in their community, and then the community members can take it and create more content out of it. The other way also is to like recognize the efforts that community members already might be doing on their own and give that fuel. So very often, like whenever you're coming out with a lore, I have a product called Zen BTC, which is also like one of my companies now. So they are creating like a lot of like episodes on like the lore and how this character comes out and ventures into this new world and blah 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 and everything around it. So what happens is like people pick on that and start creating content. What you have to do as a brand is like recognize and be able to see all these opportunities and like give fuel to it. So you can pick the content that the community is already creating and make sure that that gets seen, and the person who is creating it gets the recognition, and their stuff and content is also amplified in the process. There is no set template on how to doing this, and I feel like a lot of like projects like usually look for strategies, but there is no strategy. It's just about like being able to recognize and like honestly like just commonsensical things of like who is like starting to become a brand ambassador of your product and protocol without you having to ask it, and being able to like reward them effectively for it. So yeah, it's all about like being able to recognize, give them more rewards, and think about many to many versus like one to many, whether it's through your team or through your community or through your ambassadors that you might have picked or selected.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think like this was like a quite a nice breakdown for anybody that's trying to understand a bit more about this. Another very, I would say, controversial topic, let's say, when it comes to like promoting a project or a token, are KOLs. Many have a lot of opinions about it, good and bad at the same time. But they do play a massive role in the hype, let's say, and they have been used on all types of projects. So to be, but unfortunately, they're pretty infamous right now for like a lot of reasons. What's your opinion on focusing on micro influencers for niche credibility versus going all in with like big names for maximum reach?
I feel like two different parts to this. Like one is if you do things right, you do not need the big influencers. What I mean by that is I asked this question to Prateek, who is the marketing head of Eigen at GTMCon. I was moderating the panel, so I asked him this question as to, hey, how do you think about KOLs when it comes to like TGE marketing? And he said, like Eigen didn't have to worry about it. I don't know the answer to that question. Eigen is like big enough that they don't have to give a fuck about like all the big KOLs or even the
That's
small
a good problem to have, no?
yeah. So if you're doing things right, and if you have your community going, if you feel like you've done many to many, which is a strategy I just mentioned in the last segment, which is, if you've got your team members or your community to like talk about you. So if you look at Eigen closely, like Sriram, like any reply that gets mentioned on crypto Twitter, even if the person has like 50 followers, like Sriram will be there to like listen to him or her and respond or like to the tweet. So like he's been out there, he's been rallying the community, he's been listening to everybody, he's been taking the feedback and incorporating all of it. So Eigen just came to a place where they did not need like any KOLs. The other interesting strategy that Eigen as a project has incorporated is just the many to many strategy that I mentioned. So Eigen as a policy, I don't know if anybody ever noticed this, they don't put out content on their own website. There is no educational stuff. There's very little, and it's an internal policy to like only create content that the internal team has. So they will not hire contractors. They would not hire freelancers to write anything on the website. And what they do is they get people on crypto Twitter or out there on the internet who have their own distributions to talk about Eigen as a product, even if that distribution is just like 200 people small. And that is the only way they create content, which is very interesting and a very good use of the many to many strategy that I just talked about. So if you're doing things right, you wouldn't like really need like the KOLs. The like if you're a smaller project who's really out there trying to like do a token launch and you're thinking about getting KOLs, I would say, it really depends on like what stage you are at. If you feel like you don't have like enough of your power users, or there's no power user who has their own distribution or a community of their own, I would say look at micro KOLs first before you can even think about the bigger ones, because you really need like people and KOLs or whoever is like shilling for your product to also be like a user and not just dump it on the market after it's done. I've not found like a lot of benefit of using like big KOLs. Generally speaking, it's like incredibly like expensive. That's one. So as a project, you also need to think if you have the money and the resources to be able to do it. And second is like, again, sometimes, very often than not, like they're just not going to stick with the token or the product. They're just going to like dump and be over with it after the whole thing is done, and you don't want that to happen to your project. So always start with micro KOLs first, make sure that that's there, and then move to the bigger ones is what I'll say. And like again, do not worry if you can't afford the bigger ones. Also, it's not that big of a deal if you have like a good product and if the community is really there to support you.
I think I would have like a lot of other questions here, but like I'm trying to be mindful of time. A fun question that I have for you is like, can you tell us like what's your favorite airdrop and like what do you think they did differently? Do you have an example of that?
Yeah, I feel like I'm a big proponent of ENS just as a product and a company. I feel like even in the last cycle, like that was like one project that I felt like had like utility, or like had some real use case that they had got a lot of people outside of like of course stable coins and some other out there to really be effective. And I think ENS was like one of the first few projects to like do retrospective airdrop distribution, which had not been seen in the space. And like I said, they distributed like 2 billion plus of like value back to the community when it was not like the most sexy or popular thing to do. And they rewarded it to like people who were the early users of ENS. So I think yes, of course, Hyperliquid and OP and Eigen and all these other projects are making the rounds right now, but I think ENS like really started it. And also all of the concepts that we talked about, like whether it's micro KOLs or thinking about the community, they had like a podcast running for the longest time, and like it didn't have much traction except the power users and people who really cared about like what ENS was here out there and trying to do. And they like built all through the bear market. They've been around for a very long time. So I think ENS is generally as a project, and their airdrop and their token is something that I really respect. And I look back to and I tell a lot of projects should reference them.
And I've been building through the bear market, and I can definitely see like a lot more interest in this kind of content. At least like right now, at least like in the last couple of months, I'm pretty sure it's the same with anybody else building anything in the space. Obviously, I cannot compare myself with like a proper project with the token, but like there are some similarities I think in what I'm building here with like the community, the engagement with reach, and so on. So that's really really fun stuff to see as you grow older. I want to say, but like as you grow in general in the space. How do you?
Yeah,
How do you? Tell me.
imagine if Alex could retrospectively like reward everybody, who was listening to her podcast in the bear market, and when she just had like 100 subscribers or something. That'd be so much fun. I know like your hackathons and everything is working so well now, and a lot of people are talking about it, and a lot of people want to participate and things like that. If you could like go back and reward the early listeners of the podcast who were there, when like all of this was not there, and like when probably your podcast was not that popular as it is right now, like that would be like so fun and so nice. And I mean, people who would get that feeling of like being with Alex, they would stay with Alex after that for a very, very, very long time, because they also know that she takes care of like the people who have stayed loyal to her at the very start, right?
I mean, it's been in the back of my head for like at least a year now. So let's see how we can like do this like in a useful and good way as well. So it's still in the works. Let's just like leave it as that. Let's say. Another question that I have for you is like, how do you think you can handle a backlash or FUD during and after TG to protect your project's reputation?
Very good question. One thing I would say before answering this is like you can prepare for it. I don't know how that sounds, but you can prepare for it, but you can never prepare for it. Even Eigen as a project, they had like a lot of controversies initially around the token, around the airdrop, and around a lot of community members feeling like they have not been like seen and heard. What is very important is like none of these things can be planned for, and it's not black and white. Like I said, a lot of projects, what they're looking for is a strategy, like a blueprint. Like, okay, this is what I follow, and I have the community, and I have the perfect launch. That is not how it works, guys. You just launch. You see how it goes. If it doesn't go well, like you have to look at like what is happening wrong and be able to address it to the community. And a lot of it is about like being scrappy and listening well. Social listening, I think, just generally is like so underrated for social media content, social media growth, anything organic. I just can't emphasize enough of it. So one is like, how do you deal with a lot of like FUD and all of it? As long as you are a good project, whose intentions are clear and you're building for the long term, I'd say like first listen to the community. See, if what they are saying is valid, if you feel like, that the points that they're bringing forth is right or not, or if it's just like a set of like degen people who've just become upset because of something or the other, or because they didn't have enough, they did not get enough money or whatever. So if you feel like those are like actual users of the product who had used it early, and for some reason, they were not adequately rewarded for it, or the value distribution was not fair or whatever, as long as you can address it and listen to them, you're going to be fine. Like if something like really bad happens and it feels like it's going too much out of hand, like just know that it's there for the time being, and on a long enough period of time, like your true community members will see the value you're bringing, and will also like be able to sift the wheat from the chaff, and like just continue the loyalty that they have as long as they can see it. What you have to be able to do as a project is, if you fucked up, like just stand up and own it, and let everybody know. And like also I would say, raise your hand to like get the community to help you with a lot of these things. People who are there on your side will come and also like volunteer to help. The last thing you want to do is like like justify or panic and give in to something, that was not true or was not fall or was just an oversight that in all of the planning that you were not able to see. So like, do not like worry as long as you're a good project building for the long term. Like admit if things have gone wrong, or just, if you feel like it's really getting out of control, like just trust the time is going to take care of it. And do not like be too worried or get off track because of any crypto Twitter nonsense that happens.
One of the last questions before I ask you again to give us another example or to talk about some of the projects that you've worked with is, do you think is building a niche community such as regional language groups an effective strategy to amplify your TG's reach and engagement? Or does it risk fragmenting your audience? And I think that's a very important question that a lot of people always have. And it's something that I've been thinking about as well, for example.
No, if I got your question correctly, you're saying, like what exactly is fragmentation of users and versus amplifying reach?
On languages. So like, for example, like instead of like
More
going
languages.
wider reach, you go like a regional like groups and stuff. And that's like a bit of fragmentation of your community.
Got it. One is, I would say it really depends on the product. If your product is about, let's say, helping real businesses like lend on chain, and your true mission is to be able to like help like real world businesses out there be able to like lend, like borrow USDC, let's say, on chain, and be able to use that for their business, then it makes sense for a project like this to probably like go grassroots and go to parts of the world where the banking system is not that efficient, and it helps amplify the cause of being able to like borrow like easily, and like African markets, for instance, or just Asian markets generally speaking, where the financial system is not that strong. It makes sense for a project like this to like go and like do a lot of grassroots level marketing in these regions and countries to be able to like increase adoption of the product, because these are the regions that really need it, and not necessarily the Europe or America or any of the regions in the States. On the other hand, if you're, let's say, like a lending or borrowing platform just on I don't know, say Solana or like any of the other chains out there, your product or platform is like more of something which has like a global reach and is primarily on chain. So like doing grassroots level marketing does not make a lot of sense for a project like this. So like I said, it really depends from product to product. Grassroots level marketing like really helps when you're very clear on your go-to-market strategy, and like the mission and what your product is about. So TLDR, it really depends. It also depends on like where you want your community to be focused. Very often what happens is a product gets started and you can clearly see that there are more people in specific regions, and it makes sense for your product to be in these regions and amplify the reach. So what I would do is like think about more adding fuel to the fire versus, a product which is like more global, and you can see that the distribution is there pretty much like all around the world. And then, like really thinking about, okay, I want to do grassroots level marketing really does not make sense. The last thing you want to do is like diversify too much of your attention on 10,000 different places, and like for it to like not work in either of them because your attention is so divided. So I'm always like a bigger advocate of doing like small, like less things and doing it better versus like trying to do like too much and diluting the efforts in that process. Also, like just adding one more point, like it depends on what your product is. Let's say you're a dev focused community. Countries like India or any of the Asian communities where like there are a lot of smart people, but they are not English first, or they are not like generally like marketing first, for lack of a better word, they will give you like a lot of top of the funnel traffic. So it makes sense for you to like do grassroots level in these specific regions. Fuel, for instance, is doing like a lot of efforts in India, and it's working out really well for them. Base has also started coming to India, which is also working really well for them. So again, it depends on the product. I have one product called Fleek, which is one of our portfolio companies, and they want to do a lot of developer efforts, but from the analytics, we can clearly see that most of the users are from the states, and we probably feel like amplifying it to regions where more developers are there would generally be helpful for the product. So amplifying and doing marketing specifically, like in regions like India or China, or any Asian community where developers are heavy, for the type of tabs we want to promote, like makes sense for them. But like I said, you don't, if it doesn't make for the sense for the product and you're just doing it because you feel like grassroots level marketing is something that will help amplify your brand, I would take a really serious look at like the resources that you have and make sure that I'm not diversifying my attention too much. You do not want to FOMO into marketing strategies. Every marketing strategy work and every marketing strategy does not work. It really depends on like how well can you execute it and how well can you stick with it. So big advocate of like keep it small, keep it focused. And even if you're doing the grassroots level marketing, you want to be very specific on what regions you're picking and what is like the intent and the goal for it.
It's true. One of the things that I wanted to touch on is like, I know you worked on a lot of projects, and I wanted to see if there's any examples of project that you've worked on or anything interesting that you think like anybody can learn from them. Because also just be mindful of time, like we don't have like enough time to like really dig into it. But definitely, I think there could be a couple of lessons that you think you can share with us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think on your Twitter, a lot of people like submitted requests and like questions. I cannot like talk about the project and like the specific token of that project because of legal reasons. I can like just generally like speak broadly on like what projects should do and what projects should not do. Advice, like I would say, one is like a lot of projects like rush into TGE, which is not a good strategy, generally speaking. So a lot of projects come to me when they are just like, and they tell me that they want to like launch, they want to do TGE next quarter. And when you look at their like their community, or also like in terms of like just doing hype, when you look at the socials, like the numbers are not really there. And it comes to like power users, they don't have a clear understanding of like where the users are coming from, like what does the retention metric look like what is the like unique visitors on the website look like, and things like that. So you want to give TGE enough time. I think Ramon had this one tweet which said, until and unless like TGE is burning inside of you, you're not ready for it. So it really has to feel like it has to like run through everybody's minds and bodies in the team that hey, TGE is coming, and like this is like what our efforts are focused on. And 6 months is like really ideal. You want to start thinking about TGE like 4 or 6 months beforehand, and that is not the timeline that projects usually like have in mind. So that is like the number one advice, like have enough time. When you're thinking about TGE, and if you feel like you don't have a clear understanding of where your users are coming from and you don't even have the hype, I would say like 6 months is a good plan. Like the first 2 months I would totally like focus on like just identifying who my power users are, where are they coming from, like what channel are they the most active on, where they are hanging out, what region of the world are they a part of, like what does the retention metric look like. I will have like a very clear understanding of like who these core set of like 100,000 people are before I like tap into anything related to mindshare or hype or anything like that. Once the first 2 months of the 6 months, I would say, if 6 months, 5 to 6 months is roughly the plan, the first 2 months should be like just identifying the power users and getting as much clarity as possible as to who your loyal users are and who's going to like stick in the long run. That's one. Like once you feel like you've identified it, the next 2 to 3 months, I would just focus on like the hype, like getting as much mind share as possible, whether it comes to like finding out who your micro KOLs are, whether it comes to like redoing your branding on Twitter and making sure that you're creating content that's relatable to the larger crypto Twitter audience, and you are doing the right AMAs, you're doing the right podcasts, you're doing the right interviews, you have your PR strategy lined up. So everything related to mindshare and hype is the next 2 or 3 months, I would say. And the last one should really be about amplifying all these efforts through either paid ads on CoinGecko or CoinMarketCap and all of these other sites, along with like my exchange listings and like what exactly will be my token launch strategies. This I would do with strategic KOL rounds in combination of like talking to all my VCs and talking to all the people who are long-term interested in my projects. So that's like the rough plan. First 2 months, power users. The next 2 or 3 months, just mindshare and hype. And then last 1 or 2 months, I would say, just paid ads if you can do it, along with like strategic KOL rounds and like talking to your VCs and making sure that everybody who's a long-term stakeholder knows like the TGE is coming and this is the plan, and exchange listings and everything, which is like important decisions around the token. So that is one. Have enough timeline. Have enough time for your TGE. That is like one of the biggest advices. And the second is like more tying into everything that I talked about, which is like have a strong foundation. Defined community. People who say GM and when airdrops are not community. People who are power users are community. And yeah, lay strong foundations before you can think about anything else. So yeah, those would be like my top 1 or 2 things.
The last part of this conversation, I wanted to keep it like a bit fun. So I want to ask you, do you have an unpopular opinion?
Unpopular opinion on like TGEs?
In general about Web3.
Oh yeah, I have so many of them. I think I did this meme on like hot takes, and yeah, I do a lot of hot takes on hot takes on hot takes. So yeah,
DevCon was a lot of those.
DevCon was yeah. So I don't know if you saw, but inside of like the main event also, there was this one hot take board, and people could like stick stickers on there, and I did a meme on it like. So yeah, I think I'm known on Twitter now to wage war against like grifter KOL campaigns and follower bots and stupid airdrops in the industry. So I feel like I have a lot of hot takes around it.
What's one tool, resource, educational platform, or anything that you think people can that listening to this episode can learn from?
Good question. Oh God, like there is this one tool that I don't remember if it was Alex on Chain or Emily who shared, which can like tell you about like the past airdrops and like just break down like how many of them were true users, how many of them were just degens, and these are all the popular airdrops that have happened in the industry. So like just taking a breakdown of projects that have done this well in the past would be really helpful. I think like right after the podcast, I can link this website and people can go and check it out.
We can definitely link that in the description of the episode. And the last question that I have for you, Mia, where can people find you?
Oh yeah, Twitter. Twitter is the place where I hang out the most and I'm the most active.
Well, thank you so much for being with me for this entire hour. It's been super fun. It's been super educational. I hope everybody that is listening to the episode as well has enjoyed it as much as I have. And I'm looking forward to seeing you again and to maybe do this again in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, Alex. I love the efforts that you're putting in to educate more marketers and bring more, I would say, Web2 people also on chain. I know a lot of your efforts are concentrated into that. And guys, I don't know if you know, but Alex just had a birthday recently. So come support her and her efforts and give this podcast a like and a follow if you haven't already.
Yeah, this is true. Well, thank you so much for again, and I'll see you around.
Yeah, see you around. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to our Out of Ordinary podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you would like to hear more content like this, then open up the podcast app and click on the follow or subscribe button. It takes less than 5 seconds and is the single best thing you can do to support the show and stay up to date to more marketing strategies that are being used in the Web3 space.